The 2024 Hyundai Elantra Hybrid. The Elantra lineup, including the Elantra N and the regular car, received an update for 2024. It's a mix of safety suite changes, some quality of life improvements, and of course, a much welcome exterior update. The car gets a brand new front fascia, rear fascia, and rear diffuser. The trim levels themselves have not changed all that much. The Elantra Hybrid is sort of the premium Elantra that you can buy. There's between a $3,000 and $4,000 price delta over the regular non-hybrid variant. However, you still maintain all of the practicality, despite the lithium-ion battery pack underneath the rear seats, which is like 1.3 kilowatt hours. The rear seats still fold down. Now, when it comes to the other updates, the big one is safety. The safety suite has been improved, and most notably, the rear seats now get an airbag. Safety is a very important feature in Hyundai products. Now, when it comes to the rest of the interior space, trunk's big with the rear seats folded down. You are swimming with the rear seats up. You have a little over 14 cubic feet of cargo capacity. It's nice and wide. Full-size luggage should fit back there with no issues. This is going to be a car you can use every single day. There's lots of glass, there's great visibility, and despite being a cheaper product, this is still a fairly refined interior space. Not a lot of road noise for a car like this. When it comes to the other updates, the interior electronics have been slightly updated. The 4.2-inch display is now standard. In these higher trim levels, you have this basically one giant display, even though it's two separate screens. Wireless Apple CarPlay is not available. It is wired, and it is wired Android Automotive as well. However, the Bose audio system, which is, here's some charts from our previous test, is not great, is welcome in a car like this. It's something that you will like about the limited trim. The hybrid comes in two different price points. You can get this as a blue with the smaller wheels, which gets slightly better fuel economy for just over $27,000 with destination, and for about $3,000 to $4,000 more, you can get this limited with destination, which comes with heated and cooled seats. A rarity at this price point. Cooled seats are not found all that often at this price point of car. The Bose audio system, the ambient lighting. This is a nice place to be, and these limited seats, which are leatherette material, are very, very comfortable. Rear seats can fit full-size adults. You can put a car seat back there. This is a car that you can use as your only family vehicle. Now, when it comes to the rest of this, everything's easy to use. All the controls are physical. You can argue that the Elantra has sort of a monochromatic interior. There's not a lot of color to it, despite some of the contrast, white and black and silver. But the ambient lighting, which is only found in this limited, does sort of bring out some of the brightness of this interior space. And for 24, they've also added some soft touch material in the doors themselves. So with that, let's head in the shop and put this thing up on the lift. In the shop with the 2024 Elantra Hybrid. This is the 7th generation Elantra built on the global K3 platform. We've done a series of videos on the Elantra already, including the base car when it was introduced in 2020, and of course, our various videos on one of our very favorite cars, the Elantra N. The Hybrid sits in between the various different Elantras that you have on offer. One of the big advantages over the regular Elantra in the case of the Hybrid is ride quality and fuel economy and the lack of a CVT. So let's talk about suspension first off. The base Elantra, unless you get an N-line, gets a torsion beam rear end. The reason they did that is to save money. They reinvested the money from the suspension architecture back into the interior. The argument, the same argument that Mazda makes as well, is people care more about interior refinement and technology over ride quality. And depending on who you are, that is true. This, however, gets a multi-link rear end. So it's strut front, multi-link rear end. It rides better, it handles better. It's an overall more pleasant vehicle to be in. When it comes to drivetrain, you get a 1.6 liter GDI 4-cylinder engine paired to a very small electric motor. The electric motor makes 43 horsepower, over 100 foot-pounds of torque. Total system output is 139 horsepower and just under 200 foot-pounds of torque. While that does not sound like a lot of power in today's world, because it isn't, it's more than quick enough to merge on the highway. You can happily sit between 80 and 90 miles an hour all day long. Fuel economy. In the limited trim, you get around 50. You get over 50 in the blue trim. The primary reason for that is the smaller wheels. They move to a 16 in that car with a 205 width tire. This has 17s that have 225s. Obviously, the 17s with a wider tire do handle much better than the 16s. The other thing to talk about is gearbox. This has Hyundai's 6-speed dual clutch. Hyundai has had a mixed bag when it comes to reliability, when it comes to their drivetrains. So the peace of mind you get with this is the 10-year, 100,000-mile hybrid and drivetrain warranty. I will say, I do not know if you're going to need to use it, but if you have a good dealership, so do your homework, you should have reasonable peace of mind. The price delta between a hybrid and a regular Elantra is like $3,000 to $4,000. So whether the increased refinement and better fuel economy is worth it to you, I will leave up to you. When it comes to serviceability, that's one of the nice things about the Elantra. This is not a disposable product. While yes, everything is steel, everything is very easy to get at. The oil filter is easily accessible. All the components like struts are easy to replace, and the tires for this car are cheap. The 16s are unbelievably cheap. The 17s cost a little bit more. One thing I will bring up is this car comes with low rolling resistance tires day one. So if you're looking to get a little bit more mechanical grip, or you're going to be dealing with a lot of wet and a lot of snow, we suggest getting an all-season tire like the Bridgestone Turanza or a dedicated snow tire. Do not drive on these things in snow as they currently sit. You will end up in a ditch. Other than that, I think it's time for us to go take this for a quick drive. Mark, let's do a real street drive and a real car. This is the 2024 Hyundai Elantra Hybrid. This is a car that I feel like real people are going to buy and going to keep for a long time, and this is what they're going to do in it. They're going to go to and from their home, to work, back, run errands. I've driven this on the highway. I've done a couple hundred miles in this thing, and I actually am surprisingly very impressed with it.
Why?
I think the drivetrain in this vehicle, I'm not going to talk about reliability. It's a new product. I have no idea if it's going to work or not. I'm sure it won't work as well as the Honda Civic Hybrid long term, because Hyundai's got a lot of baggage now with reliability problems. But it doesn't have a CVT. The automatic gearbox in this is quite good. The drivetrain, I mean, I was driving Illinois speeds on the highway and I was still getting mid 40s for miles per gallon. It's a quiet car. It's fairly well damped for what it is. Yeah, at like 95 miles an hour, it does not like bumps.
Yeah.
But up to like 80, it's very composed. It's a good car.
How is it doing the things that, like, what you're gonna do? Like, right, you're buying this car because you probably don't want a lot of BS. You want good efficiency. It's not crazy expensive, and it has the software and the electronics part that people want blending, like we talked about in the interior. You still have physical controls here, but what is it like to actually use it every day? What are the things that people are going to be, that's important?
I think on the basic end of things, the safety suite, which is something that matters to a lot of people, particularly when you're using this as a regular car, is quite good. We talk about it all the time. The Korean group, Hyundai and Kia, both have some of the best cheap safety software. The lane keep works well, the radar cruise control works well, all the stuff they baked in for 24 that I talked about earlier does a good job keeping you safe. It takes some of the fatigue out of driving. I don't think it's as quiet, and I'd love to do a comparison test in the future as the current generation Civic, but it's fairly quiet. It's much quieter than old Hyundai Elantras, at least to my ear.
Well, every generation, and I was at the last generation Hyundai Elantra launch, this is like 6-7 years ago now, and so one of the things they talked about then was they were making a concerted effort to figure out the affordable ways to reinforce the car while making it quiet, and that was going to be a goal long term with this brand, is to continually move it towards like the luxury car segment of refinement. But I think what it did do is the car's really refined for what it is. I know we constantly discuss this as these cars get more expensive, as they keep iterating it out. Yes, we know they're safer, they're stiffer, they're more rigid, blah, 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 they're faster, a better fuel economy, but the refinement is the one thing that surprises me the most. Is you wouldn't think a car of this price point would feel as good as it does every day.
Yep. I think, honestly, for, let's say you got the cheaper variant of this, I think it's called the Blue, and it's in the mid to high 20s, you'd be pretty happy. And even for 30, which I hate to say, that's sort of normal these days.
Yeah. For
something that gets in the mid 40s miles per gallon all day long, rides well, yes, it's a little bit on the noisy side, all of the inputs, and I think that's a big thing now for me in cars. If it's not going to be quick, and if it's not going to be ultra luxurious, the thing it's got to do well to keep itself elevated above the Nissan Altimas of the world, and some cars that have just been phoned out, is the braking, the steering, the throttle, the suspension tuning, all has to feel cohesive.
Yes.
And I think for the most part, while this is not a sports sedan, it's not the most fun thing to drive in the world, it does a good job linking all of those things together, where if you are going to get into this car, You're never going to think about the way it drives. You'll just be, oh, it gets good fuel economy, it's quiet. There's nothing that necessarily ekes me or makes me...
I think that's the key thing is the technology implementation become a distraction and a hindrance of the driving experience? And the straight answer is this brand, more so than most brands, even some of the luxury brands, integrate the tech and the drivability really well, where when you're driving this, you don't notice the technology in the background. Yeah, you know that it's quiet when it comes to a stop. But even like the gearbox, having a traditional gearbox, good or bad, it's like a normal vehicle. You don't notice the fact
like
that...
a hybrid Civic, for
right,
example.
or a CVT that's just droning, right? It just drives like a normal car. Things like the thought of like interior space. Dude, I can barely put the front of my toes to the firewall on this in the passenger seat. The seats have an enormous amount of foam and padding in them that helps to damp out some of the harshness of the road without them having to spend a ton of money on suspension. They're really smart about where they put their money, and that's why this brand does a good job in cars like this.
At this price point.
Yes, 100%.
I think you set your expectations different for a car like this, right? I mean, to be entirely fair.
Yes.
Is this as good as like a Camry or a Accord hybrid? No, it's not. But in this compact class of car, I think it's at least worth taking a look at this versus the Civic Hybrid.
No, the pros outweigh the cons of whatever the budgetary constraints of building a car at this price point are. It really is a solid car that you're going to go and look at, maybe a first visit to a dealership and be like, I like it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that stands out other than, of course, the things we can't control. Reliability, dealership experience, brand experience, blah, blah, blah.
Depreciation
all those things.
curve.
Depreciation, right? Like some of those things are beyond our control. That's like up on to the customer to figure out. But I mean, I've always been impressed with their affordable, like compact cars. They put a lot of effort into them.
I know you and I would probably still take a Civic hatch hybrid over this because of the hatch element of it. But would you take this over a Corolla?
Yes. I really
Corolla
do.
Hybrid.
Corolla Hybrid, just for the packaging on the inside. You can forget about some of the refinement and all that. I mean, we are floating in the front of this car. It is enormous feeling without having a huge footprint. And the usability is great. The tech's not cumbersome. Like, there's just so much good things going on here for a normal, like, everyday person that's just doing they don't want to think about their car. They just need it to be good
and they don't want an SUV.
Yes, they don't want an SUV. This checks all the boxes.
All right, Mark, with that, let's hit on the final thoughts.
Sounds good, Jack.
Final thoughts on the Elantra Hybrid. I'm going to be honest, this is a really good car. I think on the Hyundai side of things, the Elantra is probably their strongest product line. The regular car, particularly in the low 20s, is very competitive. The Elantra N is our favorite affordable sports car. And this Elantra Hybrid, along with probably the Civic Hybrid, are your two definitive options in this class of vehicle. So why would you pick the Elantra Hybrid over the regular car despite the $3,000 or $4,000? Well, the multi-link suspension goes a long way in making this ride better, and the dual clutch transmission paired to the hybrid drivetrain is quite good. It makes this more refined than many of its competitors. The problem with the Civic Hybrid and the Corolla Hybrid is the CVT, where you're going to notice that increase in refinement is merging on the highway and pulling away from a stoplight. Honestly, when you're in gear, you're not going to notice it that much, but I think it goes a long way in masking some of the cheapness of all of the hybrid four-cylinder drivetrains. All of them are rattly, none of them sound good. So the fact that you're not droning high in the RPM band with this dual clutch goes a long way in making this a pleasant car. And honestly, from an interior perspective, you get a lot of great standard features, particularly in this limited trim, that push it almost to the next price point. Heated and cooled seats, the Bose audio system, the leather touch points, the ambient lighting, I think all go a long way in making this feel like a more premium vehicle than it really is. The one potential red flag for this car is going to be your dealership experience, which historically in Hyundai products has not been great. So do your homework, find the best dealer you possibly can, and some of their not best history recently with reliability. So hopefully you don't have to use that warranty, but it does offer a strong peace of mind. 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty is very good. So with that, thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon.